get a Fenway Frank and fly up and get a beer and sit at Fenway. It looked like a lovely, lovely experience in June to be sitting at Fenway Park. Not a lot of Oriole fans up there, but those who were very, very happy to see a real pitcher's duel. Luke Jones joins us here now. He was in Owings Mills on the backfields and will be there again today and throughout the week, covering all things Ravens. If there's any breaking news, it comes to you on the WNST text service. That's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. Luke, I'd say this on the Orioles, going to Boston, first place, June. I've been at this a long time, bro. I literally, not just at radio, but at being a fan and following the team. There's never been a June I haven't been following the Orioles. I don't remember a Fenway, Boston, Baltimore, back in June of maybe 1979, right? That was the one year the Orioles and the Red Sox battled, and the Orioles were the better team all of that summer. But there haven't, as much as there's a rivalry or we feel that way about it, there haven't been a whole lot of really big Oriole-Red Sox games literally ever, through the history of this, 50 years of doing this. These are big games, and I think what we saw on Tuesday night, it really would have been a Game 1 matchup in October if these teams wind up playing in a playoff series.
It really felt that way. And you mentioned a pitcher's duel, which is pretty rare at Fenway Park in and of itself, and an Orioles-Red Sox game under 3 hours. It was just the story of the night was how good Chris Tillman and David Price were for most of the evening. David Price gives up the 2 home runs. Tillman gives up the home run in his final inning of work to Jackie Bradley Jr. to dead center. But overall, those two were exceptional. Tillman throws 120 pitches, which in this day and age you just don't see very often.
Good idea or bad before you go further on that? Because, we gave up the home run on pitch like 111 or something, right? It was really, really late.
Yeah, and he really, I didn't even think it was that terrible of a pitch. If you go back and look at it, did he get a little more of the plate than he would have liked? Sure, but...
Bradley couldn't hit it any further. What was it, 420 feet?
It was to dead center field. Adam Jones kind of just looked up, and it was kind of one of those screaming line drives that keeps rising as it goes. And
that would have been out of Yellowstone Park, as they say, right?
Yeah. There was no doubt about it. But other than that, Chris Tillman got into so much trouble early in the game. That second inning that ended up being so long where Ortiz leads off at the double, he walks Ramirez, he gets a couple strikeouts, and then he walks Shaw, and you're thinking, okay, here we go. And he got out of it, and then after that, the following inning, Pedroia got the third after a one-out double, and he strikes out Ortiz, and he really settled in and pitched exceptionally after that. Got the pitch count under control a little bit more. After the first couple innings, it was looking like he was going to go maybe 5, and that was it. And he pitched like an ace. We've talked so much about the starting rotation struggles, and look, it's been painful to watch the likes of Ubaldo Jimenez, who was officially sent to the bullpen on Tuesday. But Chris Tillman's been a joy to watch this year. An ERA now below 3. He's 9-1. It's the longest run of consecutive wins for a starting pitcher, consecutive decisions, since I want to say Eric Bedard almost 10 years ago. So he's pitched very, very well, and he has been the stopper. When you're coming off a 3-game losing streak in Toronto, you have an off day, you sit there and you stew about it. Well, what's the best thing to do if you're going to Fenway Park and taking on a powerful Red Sox lineup? You send your best starter to the mound, and Chris Tillman was a stopper on Tuesday night. He was really, really good, strikes out 7 over 7 innings, and as we mentioned, the one blemish, the Jackie Bradley home run, and to the Orioles' credit, Jonathan Scope came right back in the top of the 8th and got that run back, and they needed it as they held on for a 3-2 win.
Yeah, really kind of a textbook game, and the kind of game you want to play against the Red Sox later in the year. There are going to be a whole lot of 3-2. The game was 2-0 most of the game, then 2-1 late in the game. Real pitchers duel amongst a couple of pitchers, and this is why the Red Sox gave David Price $217 million. And somewhere the old man's out watching the game, filing his toenails on Tuesday night, and saying, "Ha! We beat the guy. This is the second time we beat the guy they gave $217 million to," and it's kind of true, right? And you see Price hovering at 4.5 on the ERA. As bad as Jimenez has been, as bad as the signing the Gallardo looks at this point as far as wasted money, Yeah, I don't want to say the price thing's wasted money. We have a long way to go on $217 million, but certainly they haven't gotten their money's worth. They need to win that game when he takes the hill. But part of that was just them hitting the ball, too.
Yeah, and it's hard to put too much on him about that because he pitched very well also, but he wasn't as good as Chris Tillman. And Manny Machado, the latest Oriole to take advantage of the pesky pole as he goes inside the pesky pole for a two-run shot right off the bat in the first inning. But with Price, I mean, he got off to such a bad start. A lot of the peripheral stats look good. I don't think there's anything to be overly concerned about for the Red Sox as it relates to him, but the results haven't been there the way that they would have liked. So, on the flip side, Chris Tillman is coming up here sooner rather than later. After next year, he'll be a free agent. So, that'll be something that's certainly talked about as we get into the off season. But Chris Tillman, again.
Well, he's certainly doing it at the right time to get money, right?
Well, sure. I mean, bouncing back from the worst, not the worst season of his career, but certainly the worst season since he's established himself as a starting pitcher. I mean, keep in mind, he had quite a few struggles, but he pitched like an ace, and he has pitched like an ace this year. Is he Clayton Kershaw? No. Is he one of those top elite of the elite kind of guys that you'd throw David Price into under normal circumstances? No, but he's pitched at a very high level, and he's very quietly putting together a pretty strong case to make the All-Star team. So we'll see how that plays out. But the more important thing is he ended a 3-game losing streak and got the Orioles off on a winning note in a very important series. As you're hoping you take one of the next two and you'll head back home to Baltimore in sole possession of first place, and that's certainly the goal after taking the first one.
Or take two of the next two, perhaps, right?
Oh,
you mentioned Tillman getting into trouble early in the game and really was using up a lot of pitches, but there is something about being 9-1 and having a sub-3 ERA that it's nice you go out there and break bats and strike guys out and nobody ever gets on base, but when they do get on base, when you get two guys on and there's two outs, to not give in, even if you walk a guy and the bases are loaded, don't give in and get an out pitch. And, in one case, his out pitch was a strikeout, right, of Ortiz in a very tough circumstance. And then, to get like a broken bat sort of fly ball and a liner, that's nice too. Bad fortune seems to have followed some of the other pitchers around. That's where Mike Wright can't get out of trouble. That's where Jimenez can't throw a strike. At least Tillman this year has managed to, even if he gave up a single and gave up a run or two, come back and bounce back. And, hey, that's what Price did on Tuesday night, too. He bounced back after the pesky pole home run.
Yeah, I mean, it's rare when you're going to have those nights where you're so dominating that you're not going to put any runners on base. And David Price really kind of had one of those nights. I mean, think about it. After the Machado home run, I mean, he just completely shut the Orioles down really until Scope hits the home run in the 8th inning. But, in the case of Tillman, he's missing more bats this year. His strikeout rate is up. His walk rate is pretty similar to what it was last year. He's averaging 3.3 walks per 9 innings. That's not outstanding, but it's not terrible. And, he's been able to, as you mentioned, pitch out of those jams when he gets into them. So, I mean, he's, has he had some good fortune on top of pitching well? Probably. But he's been a guy who's been so good. Buck likes to say a lot of times, you end up being good and you'll create your own luck, so to speak. That's really where Chris Tillman has been this year. I mean, he's just been so much more crisp with his stuff. And we've talked a lot about the slider. His secondary stuff has been way more consistent this year. And I still think it comes back to his fastball command overall, though. He's been very effective, and it's been rare in 2016 when he hasn't gone out and given you a quality performance. And once again, that was the case on Tuesday night. And I think Buck said after the game, he kind of stopped looking at the pitch count. And he's using a little bit of exaggeration there. I'm sure he was well aware of what it was, but it had kind of turned into, in the late innings, a relatively easy 120 pitches, which is crazy to say because you're talking about a pitcher's duel of that nature. But after those first couple of innings, he really wasn't laboring, and he made it look pretty easy against a really good lineup. And when you have two pitchers who are able to do that for the majority of their night, that's really saying something when you're talking about these two lineups.
Well, the old Eagles song is "Take It to the Limit," right? I don't think he's going to ever throw more than 120 pitches, and that's why I said in the beginning, good idea, bad idea. It certainly helped the bullpen out on a night where he got into trouble early in the night, and it could have been a Jimenez night, which I guess takes us to the next level of it'll be Gausman, and Jimenez now goes to the bullpen. Gallardo's coming back to pitch on Saturday. Let's go through the pitching and what the circumstance would be that would bring Jimenez in. And now, obviously, the Vance Worley injury adds another little wrinkle into this bullpen and long relief situation.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of it's on skates right now. I mean, they still, as of Tuesday night after the game, they still hadn't revealed their starter for Thursday. We assume it'll be Tyler Wilson, but it could be Mike Wright. It's possible Odrisamer Despaigne, who they just called up to replace Vance Worley, who went on the DL with a groin issue. It's possible if he's not needed in long relief, could he get a shot in the rotation in addition to Gallardo taking Ubaldo Jimenez's place? Keep in mind the Orioles, they had the off day on Monday, but they have some more off days coming up here soon. So, I mean, it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. There's no doubt about it. I think, you have Tillman, you have Gausman. I think Gallardo, is going to be there unless things continue to look like they did the first four starts where the velocity was down and pitched to a 7 ERA. So you're hoping you have those three, and they're really hoping that Gallardo can settle in. They're encouraged by what they saw during his rehab stint. Velocity was up a little bit. Stuff was a little more crisp. But beyond that, I mean, we've talked so much about Jimenez, but Mike Wright hasn't been good enough. Tyler Wilson has had his moments, has been better than Jimenez and Wright, but that's a really low standard. He hasn't really been good enough. So they have a couple spots in this rotation that are really, in my mind anyway, really feel start to start. So it's really going to depend on how these final couple days in Boston go, how the bullpen holds up, who's available, who needs to be used in long relief, and we'll see after that. I really, I feel good about Tillman. I feel good about Gausman, despite the fact that run support, lack of run support, has led to him not getting a win yet. A lot of people focused on that, but a guy with a 3.5 kind of ERA, I'm not exactly concerned about. But after that, even if we're going to assume that Gallardo is going to be decent, which I think is cautious optimism, but I think he's got a track record that you give him the benefit of the doubt. But beyond that, who's going to be in this rotation a month from now? Who knows? I know Buck said that they're hoping that they can get Jimenez straightened out in the bullpen, that he is back in the rotation.
I don't know that I love that, Jimenez in the bullpen. And I don't mean at $12 million. I don't mean bringing him in if Mike Wright blows up on Friday night or Wilson blows up on Thursday. It's just having him come to the ballpark, knowing the mindset of starting pitchers. This is all he's ever done, is come to the ballpark ready to pitch and knowing every fifth day that's his turn. This is a weird circumstance, and I don't know that he'll get right there. I don't know that sending him down to Norfolk and having him throw against minor leaguers is any better. I don't know what the answer is, but spotting him out and not knowing whether he's going to throw on Thursday or Friday or Saturday, that's got to be a little weird for him. But they're paying him a lot of money, and as we pointed out, the Vance Worley situation has sort of made it a little even more lean than it already was, right?
Yeah, and let's face it. I mean, look, is Vance Worley critical to this team's success? No, but has he contributed? Yeah. I mean, you can't hide a guy completely in the bullpen. I think you can look at it on the flip side. Well, maybe Ubaldo Jimenez needs to have his mindset changed up right now. As I said to you a couple days ago, when this completely fell apart on Sunday, and let's face it, this has been trending in the wrong direction to an alarming degree for quite a while now.
Yeah, since like the day they signed him, kind of, sort of.
Well, but I'm talking specifically, his last really good start was in early May. Since then, I mean, he's at an ERA of 10. It's really been something where I think he needs a break mentally too, and maybe the fact that he'll pitch in long relief for a little while, maybe the fact that maybe he can get out of his own head a little bit, and the fact that he doesn't know when he'll pitch might be good for him to some degree. I'm with you. I'm not saying this is going to get fixed. I'm not saying it can be fixed at this point. But I think because you are committed to $21 million with him through next year, I think you need to at least explore this avenue before you just say, all right, that's it. You got to designate him for assignment. That's that. I don't know if they approached him about accepting a minor league assignment. I mean, of course, he would have to pass through waivers, which he would, and accept a minor league assignment. I don't know if that subject was broached to him. It's clearly a pretty delicate situation with a veteran in that position. Not saying he shouldn't do that, but reality is you have guaranteed contracts in the major league for a reason. But I think you see how he responds in the bullpen. You try to hide him best you can. He's going to have to pitch. He's going to have to pitch whether it's a blowout or whether it's a situation where it might be a close game and goes extra innings, or starter gets knocked out early because of a line drive off someone's knee, or any scenario you can think of. Chances are he's going to have to pitch in some kind of a close situation. Maybe not a one-run game, but a game where you're going to need him to perform, and that's going to be the big question. And given the way that he struggled and his inability to throw strikes, I think there is some trepidation that you wonder if he's going to be able to do the job even out of the bullpen. But at the same time, there's some dead weight in the bullpen right now. I mean, Brian Dunsig hasn't pitched well. T.J. McFarland is in the bullpen right now, and clearly is a guy who is part of that swinging door, that train to Norfolk, back and forth. They have some guys that are disposable right now in the early part of that bullpen. The problem is with O'Day out, they're lacking a little bit of that depth as far as that high quality pitching that they've come to expect out of their bullpen. So with Jimenez, they're going to try it. I'm sure they'll evaluate it. They'll reevaluate it. They'll see how he's doing. They'll give him some side sessions. They'll see how he does in some hopefully low leverage situations. And a month from now, if it's not any better and he's not trending in any kind of a positive direction, maybe they make the difficult decision at that point. But right now, it's not as though they're sending a great reliever down to Norfolk because Ubaldo Jimenez is now in the bullpen. So we'll see. I'm very much skeptical as well. But in a perfect world, you get him straightened out, and at some point, maybe in the second half of the season, you give him another shot in the rotation, and maybe he finds it like he did in the first half of last year when he pitched to a sub-3 ERA. So, I'm not saying that will happen, but at this point, kind of where they are, and that's all they have to hold on to with Ubaldo Jimenez right now.
Luke Jones joining us here. You can find him out on Twitter, Baltimore Luke, as well as Luke at WNST.net. Also streaming live on our Facebook as well as on our YouTube channel. So we've got the video cameras out now. You can wave and say hello and comment on the threads. Last thought for you, actually on the game would be seeing Stephen Wright and seeing this knuckleball and what this does. It sort of buckles my knees and certainly difficult to catch. He is on a run right now of knuckleballers. And, again, I've been watching baseball 45 years. And, I go back to a Negro or a Wakefield. And, obviously Messina had a knuckle curve, but it was a lot more effective than that. Seeing this guy throw and seeing the consistency he's done it, I think the Red Sox were even shocked by it, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy that they've had high hopes for, but I don't think anyone thought he'd be leading the league in ERA. I mean, this is a guy who comes into this one with a 2.09 ERA. He's pitched very, very well, and he's one of those guys that profiles that will sneak some fastballs by you. He's got a hard knuckler. He's got one that's a little bit slower. And he's pitched really, really well. I mean, you think back to R.A. Dickey a few years back. He had that huge year with the Mets before they dealt him. And I think back to Tim Wakefield, some of his best years way back when. But Stephen Wright has been really, really good. And it's tough. I mean, from a standpoint of what the Orioles are going to deal with in this one, and this is what any team deals with, think about it. You face, even if you're playing in the American League East, where you have Stephen Wright and R.A. Dickey, you face two knuckleballers a year. I mean, it's not like something you can prepare a lot for. I don't think it's something where you completely overhaul your swing because, then, for one game, what does that do then for the next 2 weeks? So it's just one of those things where I think anyone, not just the Orioles, but any team that's going up against Stephen Wright right now with the way that he's pitching, you kind of hope for the best that he's not going to have the real good knuckler, and he'll hang a few, and you'll be able to knock a couple out of the park and get to him early, because if you see some of that weak contact and some of those weak ground balls, that's where you start to say, uh-oh, this probably in for a long night. So we'll see how it goes, but he has been really, really good. And think about it, with the issues that they've had, not just, we mentioned David Price, but Clay Buchholz's terrible. Eduardo Rodriguez has been hurt for them. He's kind of been their saving grace for their rotation. I mean, he's pitched so well, and no one really expected him to even be in the rotation. He was kind of there. They kind of expected him to be the long man out of the bullpen. So he's been a pleasant surprise for them. And I think there's always some nervousness that a knuckleballer is going to lose it. Just because, if you have a bad night as a knuckleballer, you're going to get crushed. There's no such thing as, well, I'm off my game, but I made it through. Typically with a knuckleballer, if you're off, you're going to get destroyed. And we've seen that with Dickey. We saw that with many years with Tim Wakefield in Boston. But Stephen Wright's been good, and the Orioles, it's you kind of hope for the best, and you hope he doesn't have the really good one going, or probably not going to be very successful. So that's what you get, Kevin Gausman. Struggling to get run support. You'll go up against a guy who's been one of the absolute best pitchers in the American League.
Orioles steal the first one, looking to take the next one. And, the best part about this is sitting at home, and my wife looked up at the TV, and she said, man, I got to see Big Papi play before he retires. And I'm like, well, we go to Fenway Park. She said, nah, we'll see when he comes to Baltimore. And I'm like, but I like Fenway Park. I like going to games at Fenway Park. I sort of missed out on this, and the Orioles are there. Messi is playing now on Saturday against my Venezuelan brothers up in Foxborough. Like, I need one more trip to Foxborough, right? But the good news is, sitting at home, Jim Palmer's back on the call. And for that, everyone that knows my issues with listening to it makes me dumb listening to Mass in 5 hours a night, but at least Palmer's back. And when I get Palmer and Thorne, at least when Thorne's paying attention and realizes that Machado's hit was a home run and not a foul ball, I feel better about things. At least I get a couple hours of entertainment out of it.
Well, you get that, and you mentioned David Ortiz, who, how about Zach Britton just blowing him away in the bottom of the eighth inning? That was impressive to see.
Nice to see, absolutely. Anytime Britton comes out. Britton, by the way, is another guy. We don't talk about him, right? Like, we don't shower the praise on him. Let him blow a game tonight or over the weekend, and, we'll realize he's there. He really feels incredibly automatic.
He's been outstanding, and us bringing this up probably means he's going to blow a save here over the next few days.
Blame it on
inevitable.
us.
That's how baseball works, but he's been incredible. He's got an ERA below 1. We've talked a lot about Brad Brock just because, maybe you didn't expect him to be quite that good, although Brad Brock's been pretty good in that bullpen for a couple years, but that shouldn't overshadow how excellent, how outstanding Zach Britton has been. 20 for 20. It's a franchise record for saves, consecutive save conversions to begin a season, and he's been absolutely huge. I mean, and you know me, I'm a guy who likes sabermetrics. There's lots of arguments to be made about how you use your bullpen, when you use your best bullpen arms, but there's something to be said no matter how many other good arms you have in the pen, and the Orioles have plenty. I mean, Michael Gibbons has had a couple hiccups here recently, but overall he's been really good. Brad Brock, I mentioned. Darren O'Day, we know what he's done for going on 5 years now, despite being on the DL at the moment. But it's so valuable when you have a guy who can handle the ninth inning. And, as you mentioned, we barely even uttered his name, but he's been that good. And for him to come in and convert a 5-out save, and he gave up an inherited runner on the ground ball up the middle for an RBI single in the eighth, but 1 2/3 innings, he gives up the 1 hit, and he strikes out 4. That's really, really impressive from Zach Britton. So good to recognize him. He's been terrific, and to me, at this point, understanding there's still a few weeks to go, has to be a slam dunk for the All-Star game.
Well, we can hope. And more, better to make the All-Star game when you're a first-place team, and they certainly have the opportunity to really put the foot down here and win a game and beat up on a knuckleball pitcher here before we start to see the bottom end of the rotation, and we'll see whether they can finally get a win for Kevin Gausman. Luke can be reached at Baltimore Luke on Twitter, as well as Luke at WNST.net. Everything we do comes to you on the mobile device now, including our Facebook Live, our YouTube WNST live stream, as well as all the stuff we do for the radio happens in the Bahia Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world. You can download the TuneIn Radio app and listen live. And, of course, every morning, our WNST morning newspaper hits your email inbox at 7 a.m., and that is powered up by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. Last but never least, and there was some breaking news on the Ravens and the Orioles on Tuesday, all of it comes to your text service via WNST and our friends at Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. You'll get that breaking news first, whether it's the Orioles making a move on Vance Worley or whether it's the Ravens making some news with Bashad Perryman and ACL and James Andrews. Always first on the WNST text service. And Dennis is here on Thursday from 3 until 5, driving you home. You can always find me, nasty at WNST.net. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, anywhere you are. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Taos in Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports.